Welcome to Gold Coast Insider, where we bring you business insights, stories, opportunities, and forecasts from movers and shakers across the Gold Coast. I'm your host, Estella Rodiguero. I'm CEO of Regional Development Australia Gold Coast. Today, we're excited to host Dr. Craig Patch. Dr. Patch's journey is nothing short of extraordinary. A former professional rugby league player turned global innovator in nutrition and biomedical science. With over 30 years' experience, Craig transformed the health and wellness landscape, pioneering groundbreaking products like the world's first peribiotic supplement. His expertise spans the entire value-added supply chain from research to commercialisation, and his impact has been felt across industries from infant nutrition to cutting-edge gut health solutions. So join us as we explore Craig's remarkable journey, the science behind his innovations, and his vision for the future of health and wellness. So whether you're an entrepreneur, a scientist, or just someone curious about the next big breakthrough, this conversation is one you will not want to miss. Welcome, Craig, and thank you for coming on as my first guest for 2025.
Thanks, Estella. It's great to be here. Thank you very much.
Craig, your career path is one of the most inspiring transitions we've seen. So initially, you started as a professional rugby league player who shifted gears to become a global leader in nutrition and biomedical science. So you've not only tackled opponents on the field, but you also tackled some of the most pressing challenges in health and wellness. This remarkable journey leads us to wonder about the pivotal moments that shaped your path. So rugby often demands a keen focus on physical health and performance. Did your experiences as an athlete spark your interest in biomedical science? And what specifically drew you then to focus on gut health as a cornerstone of well-being?
Oh, yeah, wow. You're going to the heart of the problem.
Questions. I'm giving it hard first up.
Thanks, Estella. Look, this really transforms me back to my days in Toowoomba. I grew up in Toowoomba. As a young kid, all I ever wanted to do was play football. I wanted to be a football star. I went to bed with a football. I obsessed over every element of playing rugby league. As I grew up, I found it naturally I was okay at it. I found it easy. But as I sort of got through that teenage years and I was transitioning from, a junior to a senior, I started to lose ground. I wasn't as big. I wasn't as strong. And I looked for ways of increasing my performance. And back in the 80s, I was inspired by, Robert De Castella and his book on running and nutrition. And I actually did very poorly at school. I was in remedial classes for reading, writing, and I never used to read anything. But through this sort of just this drive to be better at rugby league, that's all I wanted to do. I studied it and I learned how to study from reading nutrition texts, nutrition books. And so I transformed my playing as a result of those findings. So as I then I went from failing student to, I did all right in my last year in grade 12 and I got into nutrition. So I actually studied nutrition as a nutritionist as I was pursuing this parallel career as a rugby league player. And I played at professional levels. I played at the Illawarra Steelers and Balmain Tigers. I'm a Tigers fan from when I was a kid, so I realised my dream. But at 27, it was like, what now? I've reached the pinnacle. I like nutrition, but I also realised I didn't like telling people what to do. I like nutrition from a self-discovery point of view, but I wasn't so keen on telling others what to do and promoting that. So I went into research at that stage, and at that time, omega-3s were omega-3 fatty acids were emerging to be, a really potent bioactive, and I studied that in my PhD, how that affected cardiovascular disease outcomes. So I've been very interested in the lipid space, the fats, as opposed to some of the other things, and that's not always been the trendiest topic. But it's becoming more and more as we understand more and more about nutritional lipids, how important they are. So I actually refer to myself as a fatty acid entrepreneur is my unofficial title. But so since 27, I still follow rugby league as a as a hobby, but my real passion is nutrition solutions, and I very much like the interface between scientific invention and commercializing those into practical outcomes.
Very good. But I'm not going to let you off the hook yet, because another fascinating chapter to your story is your time in Nepal, where you stepped into the realm of global health through medical internship. So immersing yourself in a completely different environment and seeing the challenges of the public health firsthand must have been quite transformative. I mean, you were exposed to conditions such as tuberculosis, leprosy, and of course the aftermath of disasters, which I would suggest has given you a unique perspective on health issues. So what did that experience, did it influence your understanding of the broader challenges of the global health? And has it shaped the approach of developing innovative nutritional solutions? Was that part of the stepping that you took to get to where you are?
Wow, these are left of center questions. This one, I'm just wondering how raw to go on this one, because this is actually a much deeper question than it may appear on the surface. I think, as I said, all I wanted to do was play football, but I was a very emotional kid. And I'm going to go back again. I'm sorry, I'm going back to the foundations, but this is where it came from. This is absolutely where it came from. I was very impacted by, the stories and the images on the TV about African famine, and, seeing these bloated bellies of these kwashiorkor babies and young children. And I was profoundly impacted. I ruminated. I couldn't get to sleep for months on end, and I would continually come back to this. This was something that sort of lives at me at my core. I don't know what to do with it. I feel like I don't know how to enact in that, and it lay dormant for many years.
So
Sorry,
how
I've
old were
cut
you
you off.
then, Craig?
Oh, this is pre 5-year-old. So
Wow.
this is as a very, and my mother often talks about how much of an emotional child I was at those sorts of visions and imagery, because I don't think that's common. There are other stories, but I don't hear many, and my own children are not like that. So anyway, that lay dormant, and I will fast forward through my career. So I finished playing football. I've started a really interesting career at a company called Clover Corporation, and we had some innovations there. And anyway, I left that company, and it was a bit of a crisis stage for me in my life. I was very much developing products for premature infants. And at that stage, I felt like I needed to address the problem of prematurity. There's the first world solution. So 20% of the babies born prematurely are dealt in sort of first world country conditions, where they have all the machines and all the interventions that you can. But 80% of those are in developing countries. And I needed to get some sort of orientation, insight into what the problem, which I will come to why I set up Adepa in the first place. It was a calling to address these problems with prematurity. So I went to Nepal. I signed up for a medical internship for a month. We worked with, rebuilding schools for earthquakes. I worked in a hospital, and how they dealt with premature babies. Very different, very quite confronting, quite stark, and just really to give myself a pause in my life, but also to gain a greater perspective. And I think what it brings to my next chapter, which is Adepa Life Sciences, is that we have a mission to make product, make solutions, and in turn do good, but also to make a very good company. We want a globally based, profitable, large company that's going to take on these enormous challenges. So that was a critical step in my life.
And that's a really good segue to Adepa. So your work with Adepa Life Sciences represents a fascinating intersection between cutting-edge science and practical innovation. So at the heart of your work is your research into Vernix caseosa, a substance few people have heard of, but which holds enormous potential for gut health. So what sparked your interest in Vernix caseosa and its role in gut health? You can tell I'm sort of jumping over those words a bit, but I'm sure you'll clarify that.
Hey, Estella, I've done 20 years of lecturing to nutrition students, and I ask the question every year, who's heard of Does anybody know what the white waxy substance on the babies when they're born are called? And nobody knows it. So, this is the most amazing biological substance that's an unknown as far as I'm concerned. But let me take you back to the origins of Adepa, because I think I've actually inadvertently I've set the scene really nicely. So I've got these visions of these developing countries, these babies with abdomens, and I talked about the company Clover Corporation, which I was developing omega-3 solutions for premature babies. And we were looking at addressing cognitive and lung development in those studies. We developed some amazing products. It's an amazing Australian company. So everybody should look up Clover Corporation as well. I'm very fond of that organisation. But when we were doing this large clinical trial, over 1,200 babies were providing products for these premature babies, less than 33 weeks. These are young premies, very little, very fragile. And we were looking through the neonatal intensive care unit, and the physician came to me and said, "Craig, this is great stuff. The babies tolerate it. The nurses love delivering it. But turn your attention to this baby here with the swollen gut," right? And it was developing necrotizing enterocolitis. So this is a fatal disease that these babies get in the first weeks of life. Nobody knows why or how, and it's really hard to treat, and a large portion of them pass away. So small proportion get it, but it's devastating. So he said, "I want you to solve that." And I just said, "Oh, come on, we're doing the best we can with this product." And this is no joke, Estelle, and this talks to the calling. And I don't know what sort of a calling it is, but the idea, I didn't go to find the idea. The idea came and was presented to me. I didn't try to force this. This is, I'm doing what I need to do by what's been presented in front of me. So that was on a Friday. I got a call from the same researcher the next day on the Saturday. "You've got to meet this amazing American professor at the Qantas Club. He's passing through on his way home. We just had him at the wine, tours in Adelaide. I need you to meet him, and he's got some really good ideas." His name was Professor Tom Brenner. This was 15 years ago, Estella, and he's still my business partner today. So from that meeting, Tom described to me this amazing study and this patent that he'd filed around the components of Vernix caseosa. Now I'm going to get sciencey here, so okay. let me get a bit sciencey. So Vernix caseosa, the white waxy substance that babies are born with, and this develops in the last trimester of birth. So when the babies come out, if they've got all this white waxy stuff on, that's really healthy, right? And what we found that does protect the skin. It has antibacterial properties, which is fine. But where it really pays most of its biological activity is in utero, in the womb. So it actually comes off the skin of the baby, and the baby ingests it. And this Vernix caseosa is high in these fatty acids called branch-chain fatty acids. I'm not going to get into the chemistry, but you do need to know a few things. It's saturated. So I mentioned fish oil, it's unsaturated. This is saturated, and a lot of media say that saturated's bad, but this is amazing. It's saturated, it's branch chain, and it has different chain lengths. So there's probably about, I'd say 5 to 10 that we're really interested in, different fatty acids, different chain lengths, different branching. Yeah. But these fatty acids are being shown in lots of experiments. This is what Tom showed me in this animal model, that when you give these branch chain fatty acids in cells that are dying, or where you've got gut that is developing this necrotizing enterocolitis, you could reduce the damage by 60%. You could reduce the occurrence by 60%. Startling animal studies, and these have to translate into human studies as well. But we know these branch chain fatty acids are important in bacterial cell growth. Mm-hmm. So it promotes the good bacteria at the expense of bad bacteria. And it actually helps the cells, wherever you've got a dividing cell, in a mouth, in the gastrointestinal tract, or on the skin, it helps those damaged cells at a cellular level. So it helps build the cells, it helps it regulate its immune response, and it helps it grow and divide and be healthy. So it's got this double, and this is why we call it we have this sort of peribiotic effect, and we'll get into that in a moment, but it affects both the microbiome in a healthy way and also the gut cells. Phenomenal stuff.
So it can be applied, and I know we'll get into this. It can be applied as a cream type on the surface of your skin, but also ingested, I should say. And either way, it's still highly beneficial.
Absolutely. And let me branch off on those stories, because there's two stories there. So Adepa Life Sciences is predominantly in the nutritional space. So we're really keen on what happens inside the mouth and down through the gastrointestinal tract. That's where our competitive advantage, that's where our knowledge is. Tom and I founded Adepa Life Sciences with Sarah Crennan, who is my partner in life and in business. So the three of us started up Adepa 10 years ago, and we've grown the business to launch our first product a couple of years ago. But on the skincare side, we don't feel that we have the expertise. We're all nutritional scientists. So we've done a licensing deal with Biomed here on the Gold Coast to sell and distribute and manufacture products on our behalf with these branched-chain fatty acids. But yes, to answer your question, whatever cell is exposed to the outside or to the elements will be affected by these branched-chain fatty acids.
And we'll circle back again to the skincare range and that collaboration piece you have. But beyond the groundbreaking research you've done, Adepa has introduced the world's first peribiotic, which is a product that goes beyond traditional probiotics to promote a more comprehensive approach to gut health. Now, I've heard of probiotics and I've heard of prebiotics. You're going to have to explain to me what a peribiotic is now, which I think you probably have you or not?
No, we invented this term, Estella. This is us. And because our product that we developed didn't fit in either of those categories. So we were interested. So we're now go back to product development. Think about where we could develop a product with these branched-chain fatty acids, because we're not going to scrape it off baby's skin, right? That's not a product option. We're not doing any of that. So where in nature do these branched-chain fatty acids accumulate? And there are two major sources. One is in bacteria, and we found a particular bacteria. We screened hundreds and hundreds of bacteria. We found ones with the highest amount, and we grew it in a certain way with Sean and his team at Biomed to express these branched-chain fatty acids. So it's in a bacteria. We kill off the bug. So when you eat it, we're not trying to rely on a live bug changing the microbiome. It releases these branched-chain fatty acids, and these fatty acids then affect the gut microbiome that's already in the person that consumes it, and also affects the cells. So peri meaning both, the cells and the gut, the microbiome and the gut. And our first peribiotic product does both of those. It's an oral supplement, it's a sachet, you put it on, it's tasteless, it's stable, it can be kept at room temperature, you add it in your smoothies in your morning, yogurt, however you feel like you want to. So it's very easy to take one a day, and a box is, a month's supply.
Okay, so we've spoken about the product, but what are the products addressing? And I know that I have quite a lot of friends that have irritable bowel syndrome at the moment. I mean, we take antibiotics like they're lollies at the moment, and it's the whole concern about the impact of taking so many antibiotics and us becoming resistant to it. And so I guess from a gut perspective, there's a lot of things that we're doing to it that we shouldn't be doing. So what is this product? What is the peribiotic addressing, I guess, and what is it going to do for us?
Well, Estella, you're in our target market by what you've just told me. And you're not alone. You're not alone. 50% of people in Australia, they've done studies fit this description, where they have non-specific gastrointestinal problems, whether that be constipation, bloating, diarrhea, or alternation between the two, reflux and other such things. So that's termed as irritable bowel syndrome. And we target those symptoms, and all of those symptoms are affected by our product. And we conducted a clinical trial, 67 participants in a randomized controlled trial using our peribiotic versus nothing. And we did show people that are diagnosed or self-diagnosed as part of a reporting scale of having IBS, reduced their IBS symptoms. Their primary outcome was constipation by 30%, which was a clinically significant result.
Yeah.
And all those other parameters that you mentioned also are affected by this positively by about the 20 to 30% mark. So we got the clinical evidence behind it just on that IBS study. But you know what? Our customers, they're the best people to get the feedback on what this happens. And, you know, we definitely get the reports back from the IBS. But you know what we're finding? And again, not clinically substantiated, but does go to your introduction that talks about the importance of the gut in other things, such as cognitive health, emotional health, all those things. We're finding that a lot of people that are solving that IBS issue are reporting, you know, remarkable changes in their depression, anxiety. Now, I'm not saying it's curing those, but they report that it improves that, their mental clarity. And we have plans to do more studies in that area. And a particularly exciting area we see is in menopausal, perimenopausal, postmenopausal as well, where we do know that the change of the gut microbiome and even the gut cells can help regulate both bone mineral density, but also things like, you know, hormonal control and things like that. So we see that as another expansion area to go into, and we've sort of got plans in that space.
And you're right. Like there's so much being said now about the gut being the second brain.
And we do call it the gut. It used to be the gut-brain axis. Now it's sort of referred to as the gut-brain-skin axis.
Okay.
Where it's affecting. And you'll notice that people that have the gut problems will often have a lot of skin rashes and other things and ailments, immune-related, as well as the cognition. And you've got to try to break that cycle. And look, I don't profess to know exactly the mechanism by which that happens. It's very, very complex. But, you know, one of our early customers, she's just amazing. I'm not going to mention who she is. But, you know, she went through a life change with this. And I'm talking about, you know, she lost a stack of weight. She changed her whole lifestyle. There might have been relationship changes there as well. And just reported that although she'd had these chronic gut problems, that wasn't the thing that really drives her to be still taking this product every day for the last 3 years. But it's because she just felt so well, felt, you know, emotionally, just didn't have that fogginess and stuff. And this is all anecdotal, Stella. I'm not trying to, you know, promote quackery here, but this is somebody who's lived it, and she's obviously made other lifestyle changes. But it's so good to see. I mean, that's the sort of change I definitely get a kick out of.
It's an important change to have for people as well. So let's get into the business side of it a bit. So as with any disruptive innovation, moving from research to commercialization comes with its challenges. So creating the world's first peribiotic, it's such a revolutionary product, it must have involved significant hurdles. So what are some of the key challenges you faced in taking the peribiotic concept from initial research to the market day ready product?
Oh, gee, you're so right. Yeah, this is, and you know, trying to make it in professional rugby league is difficult. The percentages of success are low. This is no different. Percentage of success is low. And I think the first thing that I'd respond there is that in both endeavors, or in any endeavor, you've got to take a leap that you can get to that end goal. So you've got to have the goal, but you have to have faith, some sort of faith that by just keep doing the right things, the small things right every day, that eventually they will compound into something bigger later. And that's hard, right? Because people want quick fixes. And I said I met Tom 15 years ago. We started the company 10 years ago, and we only commercialized our first product, you know, 3 years ago, and we're nowhere near our end game, nowhere near it. Like, so I guess the mental barrier of delayed gratification, you have to take a detour in your career. You know, I left a really good corporate job, good money, good perks, to basically, go to Nepal. I had no money, no means, and I've had to make a massive adjustment there. Self-funded some of it, as has Tom and others, and we've had investment since. But there's got to be a willingness to take the hits. You've got to go down before you go up. So that's a personal challenge.
Yeah.
I think from a practical challenge, to me, getting the idea and bootstrapping the idea, getting what they call the proof of concept, I found that fun. I'm a scrapper from Toowoomba. I'm used to, trying to just edge my way a little bit forward. But the real challenge we have now is really money. And it's money to scale the idea. If we want this to be a global idea, we need to bring on people. We need to partner up with people and companies. And that requires money. So instead of constantly, managing cash flow, I can start to think about those bigger issues. And then the third thing, and I don't know if people tell you this stuff, but the response to the market, we're a little startup, a guy from Toowoomba. Let me state my humble beginnings again. We've already had we had a patent challenge from Danone Nutricia, biggest dairy company in the world. Cost us a lot of money to defend. This is just to defend our right to stay in the market. We won, I'm happy to say, against the biggest infant formula company in the world, one of them. But that was unexpected, and they're potentially a partner of us. They'll potentially reap the rewards of this technology when it goes into infant formula and other products. So that was a surprise. But then our trademark was challenged by a big US pharmaceutical company, and we had to change our name from Vernix, after Vernix Caseosa, to Adepa. So we had, in the middle of launching our first product, we had to go through a whole rebranding, because we were and these, I think these are not in the spirit of good play. I don't think that, they weren't wrong. They weren't wrong in challenging it, but the spirit was not there. And, we were, again, this is a multi-billion-dollar US pharmaceutical company. And then just recently, another German pharmaceutical company, I won't name the name here, had a crack at us with our trademarks as well, and we settled that one. So, we barely got product on the market. We're no threat to anyone, and we've had these major allergic responses from the industry, and that's something I did not consider. We didn't budget. We didn't plan for it. So I think there's a personal thing there. There's a bit of a work ethic thing, and then obviously the response to the industry.
So it appears like industry is highly competitive. I mean, I just citing those three examples you've just given, is it becoming a bit more dog eat dog out there in the competitive world, or?
Oh, yeah. Look, I
or is
think
it access to information is far more readily available, isn't it? And everyone's very territorial about their space, and if they think you're infringing on it or going to impact on that, is that what it is?
Yeah, I think the latter. I definitely think it's competitive, and like you said, if they see you infringing on their patch, because we're playing an IP game ourselves, so we're carving out intellectual property, and that's only worth something if you defend it. So in a way, these are natural responses. I don't think it's personal. I don't think they dislike me or Tom or Sarah. I think it's definitely about the legalities. But on the same token, we could turn around in 5 years and Danone or Abbott or Nestle could be our biggest company promoting our products all around the world, and they will do that. It's not like there's any animosity between the two. Although I've got a little bit of competitiveness, so I'm going to hold a little bit back. But at the end of the day, we'll do the deals necessary to fulfill the mission.
Yeah. So how do you envisage Adepa Life Sciences shaping the future of this field?
Let me give you the vision here. I think this is a real nice time to look into the future, and also talks to the vision of the company.
Yeah.
So I mentioned we've got the bacterial source of the branched chain fatty acids.
Yeah.
Certain economics make that difficult to make that scalable in terms of if we extracted the branched chain fatty acid out. Another good source, really high source, is from sheep grease. So when they wash the wool, the grease, this is naturally very, very high. We've done a deal with an international company to supply us with a crude oil, which is, you can see in the back, I've got my products, discreetly placed. But the big canister are the first in the world concentrate of these branched chain fatty acids. 70% of that oil is branched chain fatty acids, never been done before, in large quantities that we can scale and manufacture. So our vision, I guess our vision is ultimately to hit products that will address the premature infant necrotizing enterocolitis. That's our end game. That's the big problem we're trying to solve. But along the way, this will be a ubiquitous product for anyone that's trying to affect gut health, because we know all the probiotics out there at the moment are only affecting one part of the equation, which is the bugs in your gut. Yep. No supplement is addressing the nutritional deficiency that's experienced in the gut environment. So we will have these branched chain fatty acids. So not only will it affect those cells, it will reorientate the microbiome, so move it towards a healthier environment, as well as directing the cells. And it's stable, it's concentrated, it's cost effective. We can put it in a range of products. So we'll start off with an adult supplement that can go along with, if somebody's had antibiotics, for example, and they're wanting to take probiotics, this can go along there and improve, I guess, the efficacy of those probiotics and restore the gut. Then we want to move into infant formula. Breast milk is another, has high levels of these branched chain fatty acids. And if you're on infant formula, so you're not getting breastfed, you're missing out on all these amazing branched chain fatty acids. Okay. So we think there's a nutritional deficiency there. So it should be added into infant formula, just like omega-3s are now and all these other. We try to get infant formula exactly like the components in breast milk. And so we should. We've got to give our babies the best start if they can't breastfeed and if they're on infant formula. And then finally, we want to move into the medical, almost pharmaceutical grade products that are, again, safe, super safe for the premature infants. They can tolerate it, and it can make a measurable difference on their health outcomes, either short term but also long term.
So there's a lot to unpack there. There's a lot in the future for
it really is.
Yeah, for Adepa. Part of that journey, a lot of that journey is about partnerships and collaborations, and they're vital. Like, they're just vital to any industry. And Adepa has partnered with Biomed, a company right here on the Gold Coast, and we lightly spoke about that earlier. But let's get into that. How did that partnership with Biomed come about, and what has it meant for the development of and the production of your peribiotic?
Yeah, Biomed is a really important part of our story, and when we were developing, so we got funding, we got investment, and we got a grant from the government to develop our first product. And part of it was to grow the bacteria, to ferment the bacteria. Okay. And because of the type of bacterium, it's very difficult to find a partner in Australia. So we were talking to partners all over Europe, all over the world. And then Sarah, partner in life, partner in business, says, Craig, what are you doing? Why don't you go and talk to Sean, this person she knew at that stage. He was with another company up in, I think it was Brisbane, or between Brisbane and the Gold Coast. I was living in Wollongong. I'd stayed there since the footy days. And so we had a project, and I want to call out Sean Rue, who I believe you've had on this podcast as well.
Have, yeah.
And Sean was much more than a contract manufacturer. He gave us insights, ideas. He helped us out. He's helped the company out. He's helped me out personally. So we have a real personal connection. When he left, it was natural that I moved my business along with what he was doing. And we're developing products with him, and that's on the Gold Coast. So as a result, I moved from Wollongong to Queensland, southeast Queensland, not quite to the Gold Coast yet. And because we see that relationship as being fundamentally important. We have a sales office on the Gold Coast as well. We're using the Gold Coast as our pilot. We've got a big radio media campaign around the Gold Coast region as well this month. So we're using this as a real base to just get our act together, get our networks together. And the importance of personalization of all of this can't be underestimated. And, as we go into our next stage, we will need to scale up our manufacturing. There's stuff we need to manufacture, whether that's in partnership with Sean or whether we actually, build a facility or move to a facility here on the Gold Coast it's either the Gold Coast or Brisbane, and it's going to be on the South Corridor. But this region is super important to us from a business and personal perspective. Plus, it's a homecoming for me and my wife. We've got family around this area. It's just it's how we should live and work, I believe.
Yeah, no, you're right. And I was going to ask you about how you envisage, how do you envisage fostering more cross-industry relationships to accelerate that innovation in the health and nutrition? And it still comes back to that relationship and collaboration piece, really, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does, Estella. And I think I alluded to, our supply chain's our supply chain and our sales chain will be very internationally focused. So we're getting raw materials from, Southeast Asia, all around the world. So it's not that we're sourcing stuff from the Gold Coast. That's not what we're doing. But certainly the business contacts, our sales, Rod Hockey, we've just brought on, is formerly from, Southern Cross Stereo and has a big media background, lots of connections. That really helps. And I think the connectivity, me being a naturally much more subdued, Rod sort of putting us out there from that perspective. So, I think the networks and the Gold Coast area, Brisbane area as well, you don't want to get too large where all those networks fray. So there's a critical mass element as well. So I love it. It's been the best move we've made, and we're super happy with the direction.
So from someone who's came in, made those connections, started up this business, how can regions, like the Gold Coast, position themselves as key economic drivers through fostering partnerships, cross-industry collaborations and robust supply chain networks to support the innovation and emerging industries from your perspective?
So from my perspective, remember, we're sort of a niche biotech, if you like. We're not looking at big infrastructure, but we're looking at smart infrastructure. So what we found is Griffith University through Chris Davis as well, another guy who I believe that's been on here. I've known Chris for many, many years. What they're doing at Griffith is really exciting, both from the lab point of view, and there's definitely some synergies there, but also creating hubs. Providing, as a startup, I want a nice space where we're surrounded by like-minded people, but I can't pay for the beanbags. I can't pay for the really, super fit out stuff. I want something practical. And I guess, Griffith and Sean and what he's trying to do, I think both these parties are looking at practical responses to that. And I think, whereas I've dealt with other spaces in other big cities, they just lose perspective very quickly. So from my perspective, I'm looking at functional space that's cost effective, but not sort of, out the backwater somewhere. I want to be connected because the connectivity is really important.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions looking back at your career highlights, okay? So with over 3 decades in the field, what do you consider your most significant contribution to health and nutrition?
Okay. I do think the birth of the nutritional story around branched chain fatty acids. Tom and I have talked about this at length, that if it's not us, somebody will put this out into the world. We're the custodians at the moment. We're holding the ball. And I feel like we have a duty to go as far and as hard as we can with that story. This is not just products we're talking about. We're talking about a whole nutritional category that up until a couple of years ago nobody had even heard of. So we've brought into existence. The other way I'd like to describe it is, You think of omega-3 fatty acids 30 years ago, you wouldn't have heard of them.
No.
And now they're ubiquitous. They're everywhere. Everyone's taking them and they're in infant formula. We're giving birth to the next omega-3 industry, and that is branched-chain fatty acids. And I think the impact will be even more profound because I think we will learn off what the omega-3 industry, and that's my background, that's Tom's background, and do it better. Did I only have to give one? How many did you ask? Did you ask for three? What did you ask?
No, one's
just
fine.
One? No, one's fine. Yeah, yeah.
I'll let you off the hook on that one because I'm going to follow up with a really interesting question now. You've raised significant funding and you've launched several startups, right? What advice would you give budding entrepreneurs in the biotech and health industry? See, I thought I'd follow you up with a harder question.
Yeah. Gee,
advice from someone who's gone there.
Didn't I tell you at the beginning I don't like giving advice? I like doing more than giving advice.
I know, but there's a lot of people out there on startups, and it's good to hear from someone who's actually experienced a lot in that field.
Okay, here's something that I don't think is necessarily that palatable, but I think it's true.
Yeah.
And because we know that startups inevitably fail. I mean, when you look at the attrition rate, and depending on the technology risk, it can even be higher than that. I think the first thing is you need to go after something big, something that you feel really strongly about. Don't invent the problem. Don't invent what you want to do. I think it has to encapsulate you, because you've got to dedicate. It's a long road. And it's a very, very difficult road. So if you're in it for the quick flip, for the flipping of the property and making the 10x of the money, they can do that. I've seen people do it. But I think inevitably that's not going to lead to success or happiness. But if you can delay the gratification, work at it constantly over a long period of time, let the wins compound, then there's no better life to live.
Good answer, actually. And you're right. You have to be totally dedicated to the belief in what you're doing to withstand the onslaught of. It's like climbing Everest, isn't it? You've got to be really dedicated. You're now exploring branched fats for skincare, and I'm going to leave with this because this is another product that you're looking at entering the market with. Do you want to talk us through a little bit about where that's up to? And we did mention it before, but we haven't actually gone into it too much. So is that already on the market, or is that
no? Definitely that's new to your audience, new to the world.
Right.
So we haven't launched that yet, and I guess. Let me reiterate, we're gut people, we're nutrition people. My expertise is not in the skincare, although I do think our active ingredient will have a big role to play in the future in skincare. And that's why we've partnered up with Biomed on the Gold Coast to help distribute, develop products around that. So unlike our first product, which we've branded ourselves and we sell directly to consumers, we've done a deal with Sean to do that, with Biomed, I should say, to develop products and to on-license those to major players. So we would see that as being a branded ingredient that will go out into other big players, because as you know, the skin and beauty markets are it's a whole different beast.
Yeah, it is.
And we're trying to tackle the food one, and we just don't have the skill or expertise to do that. So that's why we partnered with Sean to do that. And Biomed, and they will develop products. We may launch our own branded product around the skincare, and we're looking at that. But I want it to be based in a scientific background. I don't want this just to be here's another active ingredient with a nice story. Here's what it actually does, and this fixes a problem.
And I think it's really pertinent because you're hearing a lot more how whatever we put on our skin, and this is coming from the whole beauty field, that I get it cream and I'll smell it, okay? Like it smells like I lather myself. But now now I'm recognizing that no matter what I'm putting on my skin is being absorbed into my body.
Yeah.
So those
Yeah.
high fragrances, even as far as going and having massages, what oils they use, and actually it's all absorbing into our body and impacting on our system. So there's so much coming out now, so much more study and so much more coming out that this is really timely. Like these skin products now that are actually going to affect a positive experience is going to be vital now. We really have to look at what we're actually putting on our bodies as well.
I couldn't agree more, and I think that's definitely biome-centric's approach, because we're actually addressing the same problem. So
that's what
the gut cells are an environment with cells that block out nutrients coming in. They let things in and let things out, and don't let things in. And then it's surrounded by an environment of bacteria, viruses, fungi, all these other things. Whereas the skin is exactly the same. It's just that barrier is on the outside. So the effect of the branched-chain fatty acids will work in similar ways, doing similar things. But yes, we tend to be a lot more cautious about what goes in, but we're starting to understand that what goes on topically can end up in the bloodstream as well. So that's equally as important. Well, I think it's a phenomenal area. I'm super excited about it. It's just that I can only solve so many problems in my life.
I know, and I'm excited about your product, and I'm also excited about the skincare product, given that we now recognise that we're getting that absorbed anyway. So we're still doing damage, even if we're trying to eat healthily and we're trying to do all the other right things.
Agree.
I'll finally let you off the hook. But not without one more question, okay? I was wondering if you can share a standout moment or breakthrough from your career that has left a lasting impact on you, I'm happy either personally or professionally.
I struggle with these questions, but I'm going to go to just whatever pops in my head.
Yep.
And I'm not even sure this is the right one, but it will definitely, it's what's here.
Yep.
So when I was working at Clover Corporation, we were working with some amazing researchers that had doing some work on the premature babies. They described their idea, and I in-licensed that. I patented it, and I in-licensed it into the company. And with a core group of people, and this is the critical element, we developed an amazing product that was used in this largest trial for premature babies ever, nutritional trial, showed great efficacy in cognitive outcomes. And Clover Corporation is still trying to commercialize that now. But I guess the whole, the mission, the purpose, the people, the direction, and of those 4 people that were involved in the project, all of them have followed me across to Adepa Lifesciences. Yep. So this is a mission not only for me, but for them. And it's come from something solid, deep insights, and a deep love of working together and solving problems. And to me, that's my standout career highlight to date. I said before that I think creating this industry of branched-chain fatty acids is something that will be more long-lasting. But this as an achievement of a group, nothing better. It's like playing footy, a group of people that you're aligned to. You solve the problem. So that's probably what I'd put down there as
that whole team environment, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we started your interview with the rugby, and we're going to end with a sort of like a segue into it impacting how you went forward as well in your career. So look, it's been wonderful chatting to you. Thank you.
Yeah, likewise.
Thank you. So much more I could ask, and I'm sure eventually we'll probably have you back on when the product goes.
Yeah, I'd love to. That'd be great.
Next phases. But thank you so much. Really generous with your time and really generous with what you've told us to date. So thank you.
Stella, great questions. I really enjoyed the chat. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for listening today. For a complete list of podcast episodes and transcripts, go to rdagoldcoast.org.au/podcasts. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Twitter.